Welcome everyone. We are at Hayter's farm at Dashwood, Ontario, and with me is Adam Hayter and Brad Rager of the farm, and we're here to talk about drills and planters and when you know that it's time to change them and what to change them with and the decision-making process. And then this unit behind us is a pretty unique unit for Ontario, and the guys are going to sort of walk around it and tell us about the different things that they like about it and sort of what led to the purchase of this unit compared to others. Our first question, Adam, is sort of describe the history of the farm. Like today it is what it is, but where has it come from over the last 25 years?
I'm Adam Hayter, and we're Hayter's Farms, and we established in 1948. We have turkey as livestock, and we farm corn, soybeans, wheat. We used to do a lot more edibles, but now we're switching more to IP in the program to bridge into the wheat planting. I'm farm with my father Tom, brother Justin, and many other hands to make everything work.
And you have a store as well as part of the business?
Yeah, we have a retail store.
You talked about the crop mix, but can you talk about the soil types, and are you dealing with slope? Were you pretty flat?
Yeah, we're about 90% sand, sand, loam, clay, but 10% clay, and relatively flat, considerably flat. Not a lot of slope out there.
And in the past, we sort of talked about with the manure and that, it puts you into more tillage than maybe what you'd do otherwise, but that's to gather the value of the manure as well, correct?
Exactly, yeah. So it does put us into a situation where we do need to incorporate the manure, or we feel we should as good land stewards. And so we do that usually after wheat. Sometimes if soy is not in the rotation, if we are not putting wheat in behind or something like that. But yeah.
And are you incorporating cover crops into that wheat stubble after manure application?
Yeah, for sure. We like to retain all our soils, just like sand's prone to erosion, wind erosion. So we like to have a cover down to hold the ground and maintain and utilize that manure.
And this past winter, or like late after harvest of corn, you took this unit in, Brad, and you put fall rye in a couple of corn stubble fields. How did that work out?
I think it went really well. Like we didn't know pluggage. It just everything flowed real well, and we got where we wanted to be for our depth and such. And I think it was a pretty good catch what we've seen, and especially this spring, definitely like rye comes up like weeds, right? So I think we were pretty happy with the whole how everything went.
What cover crops do you use as part of the farming operation, Adam?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, occasionally if it's not too late of a harvest where we can still get some rye in and get it up and going, we'll do that after corn. We did after wheat, we typically will do like oats, buckwheat, sunflowers, Austrian peas.
And with a unit like this now in the inventory, do you use the different tanks to put the different things in, or do you do a blend of cover crops seeded together?
Yeah, it's usually a blended mix. You're talking about tank split there, and that kind of brings to mind that we one of the biggest reasons we got into this was to be able to apply MAP, and that was a big win to split with the MAP and the wheat seed and having different takes and being able to meter differently.
Excellent. So just sort of talk a little bit about sort of the thought process, the decision-making process about what you need to consider when you're going out there to replace seeding equipment.
I think the biggest thing is technology. An air seeder could last forever. A lot of people have John Deere drills still now today, just because, yeah, they last and they do a good job. But it's just if you want something like capacity, you want a bigger tank capacity, as I mentioned there before. If you want something like being able to apply different products at the same time, like you can do mid-row banders with this. That's not something we went with, but being able to split up mixes and apply different things in a single pass is, yeah, that's something you consider.
You change the planter, there's other pieces of the puzzle that have to change too. So as you move to this unit, did other pieces of the sort of logistics have to change to optimize this planter?
Yeah, the biggest thing would be the tendering. We'll see later on there, we switched to a conveyor system that belt driven that we can load quite easier. Before we would just we had kind of a different setup, but it was similar but smaller scale. So we had to expand our auger height and stuff like that.
And sort of from home, how far away is sort of the furthest you are planting it?
Maybe 8 kilometers, 10 kilometers away.
Not too bad.
We're relatively close. We're pretty fortunate that way that we don't have to go too far to go and come back too. But when you're on those distant farms, then it definitely helps having a tender system set up and ready to rock.
Traditionally, no-till has always been the special planter, but when you look at the planters today and the drills today, they seem to be adaptable regardless of the tillage system that people are using. It's not like you have to buy a special drill or a special planter to do conventional or no-till. They're pretty much the same, or is that what you're finding?
Yeah, for sure. And then they're usually pretty adaptable in a way that you can add a coulter up front or a residue manager easy enough if in the regards to a planter. But drills generally can slice and cut into pretty much any situation. But there's a couple changes you can make to make that more advantageous with downforce and stuff like that. But most drills can get into anything.
There's sort of, when you buy a new planter or you're upgrading a planter, there's sort of must-haves and there's nice to have. And so, what does Hayter Farm consider the must-haves on planter and drills these days?
Guidance system in a tractor, if you want to go that route, it's pretty, I don't know, I guess it's hard to say it's a must-have, but it definitely helps from a precision ag standpoint.
Scales is a definitely must-have. They just, the Bourgault has they call it Dynacal, which it's an option we have with ours that it does the math for you. So again, it's within a certain percentile of 5%, but it's what I find it's more a fail-safe.
I remember, Brad, when you were seeding the rye and I was up in the cab with you, like there's a lot of electronic information throwing at you, right?
There is. Yeah, like there is. There's lots going on there. For anybody just hopping in for a quick view, it can be very overwhelming. I would not deny that, but again, you can set up monitors different ways to be more simplified depending on your expertise, right?
So, like, must have, like, what about the section control or row shut off and stuff like that? How important is that to you guys?
To justify a must-have, I don't know, that's kind of a hard thing to do, but there's a lot of nice features out there now that really help.
And would you consider the downforce a must or a nice to?
I would say it's pretty high up there, especially if you're no-tilling. I guess you got to consider what's important to you on your situation because everybody's different, right? Like if you get into a really hard clay situation.
What was the game changer in these units that you guys decided that that's the unit that we're buying?
Capacity, the ability to split product was, speaking to the air seeder, again, the biggest reason we made the switch was the gain on MAP that we saw in wheat. So that was the biggest thing that pushed us into something with a tank capacity like this. The metering system, the scale, it's pretty sophisticated in that light.
So is that metering system, is it both accurate and easy to calibrate for all the different size of things that you want to plant?
Yeah, like calibration's very, very simple. Again, it gets into the techie world a little bit here. Again, you can do all your calibrations from the back. It's stationary calibration. You weigh pails. That's the glorified way of doing it. With the multiple products we've put through, on the most part, it's very, very accurate. Like you gotta, like anything, you gotta tweak your batch a little bit, but again, you're very strong out of the hole. Like you're not right out of whack. You're within that 5% percentile. And again, depending how fussy of an operator you want to be and if you want to be on the rich end or you want to be where you want to sit in that 5%, it's all into the operator at that point, right? And that's the thing that I especially like the most about this is that, with other air seeders, again, that what I've seen is that your rate always fluctuates. Where this, once you get it set and you get that threshold where you want it, she'll hold her own. And again, that's I find it a huge part. Again, you're more accurate. You know you're putting the rate you want. You're not flexing throughout the farm. So again, in the grand scheme of things, your population's where you want it, right? After we load up with product, we go underneath here and we would pull one of these, or depending if you're calibrating the whole machine, you'd pull each of these pipes off and you would put them in these little cups. And this is where you would catch in your weigh pail so you could weigh to calibrate the unit. And once you're done calibrating, you would put them back on and then you're basically set. To do a stationary prime test, you'd use your control panel here, and out of your 1, 2, 3 would be your tank controls for on and off. And you could prime individually or have them all on at the same time by just pushing your on and your play stop button, and that will prime the system. Then you can check all your row units and make sure you have seed or your whatever desired product coming out and putting onto the ground. Like 11 psi.
And that's on the road too?
Yeah. That's how come you're limited to your 20 mile an hour, right? Like, one, with the amount of weight, and then again, low air pressure, right? So, but yeah, like, she'll squat. Like when you're loaded, like soybeans, when we got like 20,000 plus on board, like she squatted, but it's nothing worrisome. You just, she's doing her job, right?
Yeah, and should we point out, Brad, that we plugged in the hydraulics here to hook up to the conveyor so that we can tender and just have a grain cart pull up to the side, and makes it a lot easier, a little more flexibility that way.
Yeah, for sure.
We also have a hitch here where we can pull a roller in behind that matches the unit if we so desire. We got there's 3 tanks on this particular unit. So there's a 50 bushel, a 125, and a 175. So gives us lots of flexibility having different tanks. Just like a walking depth guide here with a gauge wheel to keep it at the desired depth. That's pretty standard. You can change the pitch on these, right, Brad? The packing wheels here.
On the packing closing wheels, what we have found is that on our tillage end of things, we'll windrow too much, so we have to straighten them out. But when we come into no-till application, we have to pitch our wheels back to help close our trench.
The towers are the sections, so they'll shut off at the towers, and that's how much section control you'll have. And that's every 5 feet?
Every 5 feet.
Every 5 feet.
And is there a difference between the front gang and the back gang in terms of, can you send one tank's worth of product to one gang versus the other, like fertilizer and seed separately, or how does that work?
It's all comes up and all feeds into each tower, just because of how each tank's individually, right? So when you auger at the same time, it all dumps into your same blow tube and then goes into the header, and then the header disperses out. The only thing you can do if you were desired to go on 15 centers, there's a block off plate that you can see right there that you would have to put inside that cap to be on your 15 centers. And there's a tap. The taps are up front, and there's a tap out back for those center units, because how they overlap. There's a tap you got to shut so you don't have that unit going in the ground.
Something we have noticed in our lighter soils, in regards to the front and back rank, we sometimes set the depths differently, because we'll have a bit of throw over from the back rank from the front if we're in lighter soil. So then that creates a different seed depth. So we kind of have to adjust accordingly to that if we're in some pretty light stuff, that if we're throwing more soil over, just to get a uniform emergence. So,
and you can do that from the cab? No,
it's all manually adjusted for seed depth.
So Bourgault, of the research and what I do know, they're a Canadian company based out of Saskatchewan. Long story short, they got into they've grown into the air seeder game. Very, very popular out in Saskatchewan in the prairie end of things. They make some massive equipment. As far as I know, I think they're the only one that's made a 100-foot air seeder. Again, I think there's a handful of guys that run it out there. A lot of them are 80 feet, big giant pull behind tanks. They just massive iron out there. They make a very tough equipment. Again, everyone knows how dry it is out there. So again, that's why they got the weight, how they can have stuff that gets it in the ground, like we've mentioned earlier. They're not shy of putting iron in these things, and again, at points, that's what you need, right? So
Yeah, on that point, the individual hydraulic downforce is kind of the key to that, as well as the large coulters that help get that downforce into the ground. I think it was an extra like 4 inches on these than our previous air seeder, so it really helps, especially on wear, right? Like it'll last a lot longer with a bigger disc.
yeah. The other point we should bring up, on this air seeder, there is an option on your gauge wheel. There's two different sizes. There's a skinnier one, and then there's the larger one that we see here. More for what we've seen in the past on the skinnier wheel, especially in tilled soils, you'll get a weird wave, like a wave effect, I guess you'll call it, that it'll push ground, but it'll start to ride up and chuck your depth, and it will change your depth. So going to the wider wheel was, I guess, it holds your depth in a better consistency, I guess is a better way of saying it. So that's what we found we had to have for our applications.
And as far as serviceability, pretty simple, right? Like
Very simple, like your maintenance aspect of things. Like again, they claim it once a year grease on a lot of this stuff. There is a ton of nipples, like grease zerks or nipples, whatever you want to call it. It does get intimidating looking. Like there's 400 and almost 500 nipples on this thing. Like it's crazy, but
it's not a daily
it's not a daily thing. And again, like this is where your cost, why there are more. Everything's on roller bearings. There is no bushings. They're all on needle bearings. All these pivots are on needle bearings. So again, it's why you get this nice flow back up and down on a consistent basis. So again, like if you wonder where the cost goes, it's what you're buying. You're buying something that's going to last and not wear out prematurely, if you know what I mean, right?
Much beefier than our last air seeder. Also, like it's easy to see that there's some serious iron there. Something to push against for, again, to compaction reasons and stuff like that.
How wide are you going down the road?
Not too bad. I think standard below 20 for sure.
Yeah, it's not horrible. Again, I would say it's a little wider than our 500T. Again, what you just got to get used to, because it's a bigger unit, bigger tanks, bigger everything. You got to respect it. With the 400 with the road track, it's phenomenal going down the road. Like again, you just got a lot of weight of a tractor there. I know in the spring when we have our 340 tractor on it, you got to watch your P's and Q's. She will push you around a little bit. So again, you just respect what you got, But in general, like even between the two, like 400's lots of power for this thing, because again, we're not into rolly hills or anything like that. So us being on the flat surface, we got lots of power. Like the 340 walks with this thing, right? So for our application, we got lots of tractor. The biggest thing is you got to have lots of hydraulic flow to run these things. Like again, you got 64 cylinders. You got to remember every row, right? It's got a cylinder. So again, you got to have lots of hydraulic flow just to run this thing. But
and the fans also.
The fan's a grabber too. Again, and then when you get into mid-row banders, it's another fan to run too, right? So we're single fan. Mid-row banders, you're guaranteed double fan. So again, that's just that much more gallons you need to have to run the thing, right?
Again, the whole reason for this series is to sort of help others, sort of work through how to make the right decisions about when and what to switch out of if they think their planter needs to be replaced. So are there things that you've done in the past that sort of were a mistake and that you had to learn from that might help other people avoid problems, things that you would suggest to people to avoid, or usually your decisions have been spot on?
We've tried different closing wheels and stuff like that. That just didn't really work for us. Just because in sand, it didn't. If it's a finger style or something, it didn't quite seal over the trench well enough. But it's a tough question to answer because it's kind of inherent to your own situation, right? Like it's kind of, you have to just try things for yourself and see what's going to work on your operation, because everybody does different methods, practices, mainly because they have different soil types.
And I remember in December, Adam, you and Mark were talking about the fact that it's if you're serious about making that decision change and stuff, get a unit out in your fields and get some time on it so that you understand what you're working with.
That's exactly it. Like we tried this 3 seasons with several different crops, right, Brad, before we made the decision. So yeah, trial and error is the biggest thing before you make that decision, I guess, is before you jump in.
And so, what would be your advice to other people thinking of replacing their planter?
Good sales reps, I guess, is they come to you. And no, but I don't know, the farm show's coming up. Check out the farm show, check out staying current. I don't know. Yeah, it's just it's a community out here, so you gotta stay connected and see what everybody's doing and watch your neighbors. And
So you've got a new corn planter, and this drill is pretty new. So, like, is there any next steps, or you pretty much sort of got the system that's optimizing your farm right now from a planting standpoint?
yeah, right now I think we're pretty happy with what we got going on right now. We're excited about the planter also, and yeah, we're just tweaking certain things like our tendering system. We tweaked up this year, and we're happy with that. Sometimes less is more. It was an elaborate conveyor system before, but now just a straight shot works a lot easier.
And this unit has the option of the mid-row banders, which is a big deal in Western Canada. It seems almost all the drills have that.
Yeah.
What was your decision not to go that way with this one here?
Yeah, so just again, capacity. We'd only use it really in wheat. So we don't want to we use UAN ahead with a sprayer, which can get done maybe a lot more than having to load so much with this. And it's quite cumbersome to have that many row units all on one thing. So just from a practical standpoint, it's too much for all one to do one thing.
In your system, there's other ways to handle that fertilizer more effectively.
Yeah, just for our situation, but the crops we plant so.
So that brings us to the end. And Adam and Brad, I just want to say thank you on behalf of those that will see this series on planters and drills for your time and interest in sharing with others. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.